Both sides of the conversation family. We welcome you to this virtual space crafted especially for you. My name is Jada Curry and I'm Both Sides of the Conversation's marketing director and graphics design specialist. I want to take some time to ground us all as a community into this space we are about to open up in, so let's go through our community standards. Both Sides of the Conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation, so we ask that you all be respectful of that. We also ask that you be respectful of each panelist, host, and participant. We do encourage healthy debates and conversations. Don't personalize anything with anyone. This includes name-calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming. This will not be allowed or tolerated. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. You do not have to agree, but show respect. These community standards apply to all of our live shows and any virtual spaces that we hold on social media, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We want to make sure that we are caring for each other as a community. This is our priority in all of our endeavors as both sides of the conversation. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to stay in touch with us via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. All right, thank you for listening and see you soon.
Welcome everybody to Both Sides of the Conversation. I'm John Henry, Executive Director. Today is Thursday, so you know what that means. We're going to have another educational conversation. Today we have some phenomenal people that's going to come on and talk about some of the struggles and some of the things that some of our city workers are facing. Unfortunately, I apologize to the community for the late start. We had some technical difficulties with our professor and one of the guests that's going to be that was supposed to be reviewing this independent report. But we have the workers here. We have some community leaders. There's some information that we're going to get out to community about this redistricting. A lot of information. Thank you all for being patient. Sorry for being late, but this is what happens sometimes with this digital inequities that we face in our community. So please be patient with us tonight as we get started. I know it's a little late, but we'll get through tonight's Educational Thursday. With that being said, want to get a couple of the community announcements out to the community before we get started tonight. One, I just want to say thank you again to all of the community, all the people who has been sending me and my family all types of love Everybody know that I lost my mom this past Sunday, and it's just been great to see all of the community stepping up, showing me love, and just continuing to uplift my spirits. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a task. Every day there's ups and downs, but I just want to say I appreciate all of the community. Sometimes when you get to those dark spots or those down low points, it just seems like somebody in our community is reaching out, sending me love. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been sending out that love to me during this difficult time right now. So just want to say thank you for all that you all do in the community, and I just appreciate the love and the support. With that being said, we're going to jump into a couple of these announcements, and we're going to get started here. One, everybody know here in California, the governor recall did not happen. Governor Newsom will stay in place as governor of California. It's nice to see it over with, but what a waste of money here in California. We wasted to just get the same results. But again, it's over with now. Hopefully we can move forward. Hopefully Governor Newsom could get to work. I also seen today that he did push out the $1.57 billion for housing. Housing is an issue in California as well as across this country, but hopefully now we can start getting to work, trying to unify our communities and start impacting the people. We need help. We need support. Our communities are in crisis, and this housing situation, especially here in California, is out of control. So I hope we can work together, and I hope they could get some things together in Sacramento and work bipartisanly to start moving some of the resources and start impacting our community. So glad that it's over with now, and let's get back to work. With that being said, another couple of announcements. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles testified to the Senate committee yesterday about the sexual misconduct against Larry Nassar and a number of other athletes. That is still going on. I mean, they've been investigating this guy for over maybe more than 200 victims. Just, insane stuff. But, unfortunately, I have to go through the process, but it is happening and it is moving forward. With that being said, community events, there are a number of events going on throughout San Francisco and out the Bay Area, but we'll talk about some of the ones that we have tomorrow. At the Archdiocese, there will be a panel discussion about homelessness and substance abuse addiction. It's a very, very important conversation. We all know here in San Francisco and across this country, substance abuse and homelessness has impacted our communities. So this is going to be a great program. We'll be out there. Both sides of the conversation will be out there. A number of organizations. It'll be just great to have these discussions, talk to communities, some of the community organizations, as we continue to try to work and find out the solutions. How do we fix these problems in our community? With that being said, the Fillmore Square job training, faith-based culinary training is still going on. You all can reach out and contact Tyrone Mullins. I'll get that information up in the chat. If you want to do culinary, you have somebody in your family or someone you know who believe they might want to be a chef or get into the culinary industry, please reach out to info@thefillmoresquare.org, and we'll get that information out on the screen shortly because that's very important as we're talking about workplace development and developing our communities. We need these type of organizations and services to provide, to educate, uplift our young people in the community. So I'm just happy to see more and more job opportunities are coming. There are a number of more resources coming as the mayor has launched the Dream Keeper initiative. There's a number of workforce development things that are coming, and I'm just hoping that community and these resources get connected, and we'll be doing our part here at both sides of the conversation to make sure community gets that information and make sure that we are able to make sure that those intersections connect moving forward. So with that being said, the Be Magic, the Bayview Magic is going to be presenting Family Day for residents of the Bayview every day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then they're going to extend hours from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Please reach out to Be Magic if you want more information, and we'll get that information up in the chats as well. The Bayview Hunters Point Park is in collaboration with the Park RX to host a zero-waste gardening shop located at Heron Park at the Eco Center, 32 Jennings Streets. Please contact Alex to get information, and we'll get that information up there for community as well. Some phenomenal events and programs going on for community. Also, Saturday the 25th, we will be having another 3rd Street Humbre Block Party. The African American Culture District will be hosting this. If you guys want to be a part of it, reach out to Erica Scott over there, and we'll get her information on the screen out to community. It'll be at the Cafe Envy located at Lane in Yosemite. Coming up in October, the Phoenix Day Block Party is still happening. Please go to the sundaystreetssf.com/block party to get more information about that event as well. With that being said, both sides of the conversation, events and segments that's going on. You all know every week we have 3 live shows. This Sunday, we will be having a very, very important, impactful conversation. We're going to have the Human Rights Director, Dr. Cheryl Davis, a number of community organizations, Wealth and Disparities, Felicia Jones, David Muhammad. We're going to be talking about community violence. This is part 2 from our part 1 segment. They're going to be talking about resources, some of the things that's in place that's going to be helping to try to impact some of this gun violence and some of the violence that's impacting our community. So looking forward to this Sunday's conversation at 2 p.m. It should be a great conversation, a lot of information and resources for the community. And we're going to continue to do our part here as more of the Dreamkeeper information starts to come out. We're also going to get some of those Dreamkeeper grantees who are going to be doing some of this violence prevention work on our platform to come talk to community and talk about the work that they're going to be trying to do, some of the measures and things that they're going to be trying to put in place to help curb some of this violence, and as well as community giving your input and solutions, what you think we could do, because it takes a community. No one person can know it all, no one organization, no one model. It takes us all, and we're going to be open to hearing what that looks like and how do we all get involved and impact our community when it comes to gun violence. With that being said, every Tuesday, you all know that we have our Hidden Gem segment at 7 p.m. where we will continue to highlight our Black and brown businesses as well as community leaders and organizations that are doing phenomenal things to impact our community positively. Every Tuesday we'll have that, and we'll continue that segment and run it through. And you all know, like tonight, every Thursday is Educational Thursday. We are looking to bring intentional information to our community. If that is you out there, you have a PowerPoint presentation, you have great information or something that is very powerful to impact our community, because we all know sometimes in our community, certain information, certain education materials just doesn't get to our community. So we're going to continue to utilize our platform to make sure that information gets to community. One other event that I want to make sure that we get out there, Mega Black SF Wealth Disparities. Next Thursday, we will be having a block party at City Hall, a community appreciation day. They will be shutting down the streets of San Francisco in front of City Hall, and we'll be out there as community enjoying the appreciation of all the work community do. So that will be next Thursday, the 23rd. From 12 to 2 p.m. in front of City Hall. We'll be shutting down the streets with Mega Black SF Wealth Disparities, and we will be out there to bless the community. With that being said, upcoming conversations that we're going to be having here on both sides of the conversation. On 9/26, we're going to be talking about the housing management issues in San Francisco. As you all know, there's been a couple of tenants who passed away, have medical conditions from some of the management companies in our community. So we'll be having that conversation with From the Heart, some of the Human Rights Commission folks, and some of the people from the community to talk about what's going on. How do we hold these management companies accountable in our community? How do we do things to support those who live in our community housing? And then on 10/3, we're going to have a powerful conversation about substance abuse, drug abuse. We're going to be having this conversation with the Dope Probation, Reentry, and a number of other organizations to talk about this fentanyl and some of this drug abuse in our community that are impacting us every day. And then on 10/10, which is going to be a very emotional conversation about breast cancer awareness. You know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as well as we'll be having a conversation about domestic violence, as we will always honor and respect Domestic Violence Month and have those difficult conversations with community. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start moving into our topic tonight. Again, there was an independent review of the San Francisco EEOC and their workplace policies and procedures. There was a doctor, a professor who came out to do an independent review, came up with a study, came up with some information. And tonight we're going to have our workers talk about some of these issues, look at the summary. There's a commission meeting that's going to be coming up that community and city workers need to be a part of, as some of these policies and some of the things that are impacting our workers are going to be presented. And we just want to make sure that communities involved and have this information. As we know, not only during the pandemic, but before the pandemic, Black and brown workers in all sectors, not only in city, county, has been affected by a lot of the number of things that's supposed to not happen when we talk about discrimination, retaliation, a number of issues that's impacted us, and some of the systemic things that has been put in place to not properly support and help those when issues are arise. So we'll talk about some of that tonight. We'll bring up our guests. And then again, we'll be talking about some of the redistricting things that are going on, and it's going to impact our community, and why that information is important, and why we need to make sure that community is starting to be involved with some of these civic changes and understanding what's going on as we push forward with what's going on here in San Francisco. So with that being said, I'm going to land my plane, and we're going to go ahead and start introducing, bringing up some of the guests tonight so that we could get into tonight's information and some of the talks behind this public review and the summary of it. And we'll try to get the professor who wrote the report. We'll try to get him back on, as he struggled with some technical difficulties and things of that nature, to really break down his findings. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start introducing our first guest. We're going to bring up Ms. Cheryl Thornton from Department of Public Health. How you doing, Sister Cheryl? Go ahead and introduce yourself to community, and we'll bring up the next panelist. You have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Hi, John. Thank you, and thank you for having me on the show. So again, my name is Cheryl Thornton, and I currently work for the San Francisco Health Department. And I'm a supervisor in eligibility and eligibility and financial registration for the patients. I have over 28 years of experience, and I currently hold a bachelor's degree from San Francisco State University in organizational psychology. I came to San Francisco when I was 11 years old because my father was admitted to the UCSF. He was the first class of Blacks, pretty much, that was admitted to the UCSF dental school. So I came here to San Francisco, and upon his graduation, he was placed at he received a job at the San Francisco Health Department. And from there, there were 2 new clinics in District 10 that were built. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but there was 2 clinics that were built in District 10, Potrero Hill Health Center and Southeast Health Center. The reason I'm bringing this up, he worked there for many years, and then I came to work there. But the whole time I was growing up, I was watching the leadership of Enola Maxwell, Espanola Jackson, Shirley Jones, Miss Westbrook, and Vera Blue, and Roxy Harris, who just recently passed away. I was there under their leadership, learning about how we could serve our community. And so as a Black worker, I came to the city to serve my community and be an advocate. And what I've seen over the years is what Dr. Gould talked about in his report: the removal of Black workers through systemic racism in the city and county of San Francisco. So tonight we were here to discuss Dr. Gould's findings, but our main ask is to have people come to the Civil Service Commission meeting on September 20th, because we really need these changes adopted. And what I can say is, as a community member living here in District 10, a Black woman who's worked my whole life for the Department of Public Health, I just want to pass the torch on to our younger people in the community to have these type of jobs, because the public setting pretty much has the best jobs for, that's the largest sector of best jobs in our community. That's what I'm trying to say. So thank you. And that's my introduction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. With that being said, we're going to bring out Ms. Brenda Barrows.
Hello, my name is Brenda Barrows. I'm a 42-year employee, and I work at San Francisco General Hospital. I'm also a union activist. I'm the chapter president out there, and we've been fighting this fight. In my whole 42 years, I have seen many, many, many things, and the Department of Public Health is, when it comes to like Black employees being treated poorly, I've seen patients treated poorly, and we need Black people in the workplace to protect the people that come there, because in many cases there are many people that walk into different departments throughout San Francisco and they don't see anybody that looks like them. There's nobody there to advocate for them. So I really think that these changes must be adopted, because the status quo can just not stay, right? The status quo is we're agreeing that San Francisco can keep its racist systemic systems that are in place. And this is not about any particular person. This is about the system that we all know is in place, and it has impacted us. And I'm thinking about my grandkids who live up in Hunters Point right now, some of them, and I want them to be able to have a job working for the city. It is, I see the hiring process, how broken it is for people to get in. Some of us got lucky. I got lucky. But, even though I got lucky enough to get in, the process of being a city employee has caused, a lot of different issues to come up. And I've had to face a lot of discrimination in the workplace from people who come in from Marin and different places. They're the ones that get hired to work for, our people. And they're the ones that are mistreating our people. And so we're saying enough is enough, no more. They have to fix this. I'm glad that some of the people in the city government have stepped up to try to do something. But we want to make sure this is not just another case of another report. There's already been 2 I know about where nothing changes. And I will tell you, even with everything that they've done so far, nothing has changed. And I can give an example. DPH hired Dante King. He is known for working on discrimination and trying to change our system. We were happy about it, the workers. He supported the workers while he was there. And now I find out they're trying to get rid of him because some of the white people that he's coming at about their racism are feeling quote unquote uncomfortable. So this is not something that we're talking about that happened a long time ago. This is happening right now, today, every day, to Black city workers, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, we will be bringing up Kimberly Cox.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Let me introduce myself. As he said, my name is Kimberly Cox, and I'm an employee of the City and County of San Francisco for the Department of the SFMTA. I'm also a union activist, and I serve on SFMTA's Streets Equity Action Team. Firstly, let me say that I'm a native of San Francisco, where my parents raised me. My father was an employee of MUNI. My mother was an employee of the San Francisco Unified School District and an advocate in the Bayview Hunters Point community. My main purpose today and every day is seeking racial justice for our community of Black workers. My main focus being here is in hopes to see a positive change with racial justice amongst our Black city workers. We are experiencing numerous disparities which have been shown statistically from discipline and firings over and over amongst any other race in the city. We all know that the gentrification is real here in San Francisco. Not only is it real in our housing communities, it's actually very active in our workplaces right now. With that being stated, I'm giving much appreciation to Dr. Gould, who has done an insightful research and investigation into the disparity practices that Black workers have endured and are currently enduring day in and day out on a daily basis. So I want you guys to join us in the fight for racial justice for all the city and county Black workers. Ashe.
Ashe. With that being said, our last panelist tonight, and again, we had several other panelists who had some technical issues in being here, but our last panelist for night will be Reverend Arnold Townsend, and he's also going to be talking about the redistricting that's going on and some of the things that's happening with redistricting in San Francisco. Brother Arnold.
Hey, John, thank you, man. Just people in. It is time for the lines to be redrawn in the city for our supervisorial districts. That occurs after the census about every 10 years or so. There's a committee, a commission appointed to do that work. I am appointed to the commission by Mayor London Reed. She has 3 appointees. The election commission has 3, and I believe it's the board of supervisors who have 3 to make up the body of commissioners. We will study the district lines. We'll study populations, ethnic populations, and where they live. And after we look through all of this data, we will then try to decide how the lines best work in the fairest way. That also will include public meetings at the present time, probably by Zoom, but who knows, before this work is done, we could even go back to being in person if it's deemed safe. But the public can be involved. We know that many of them will be involved in doing their own research and their own data to try to explain to us how the lines ought to be drawn, where they ought to be drawn, who should be included, who should not, and probably a bunch of things that I can't even think of. I am familiar with the process, and probably one of the reasons for my appointment is I served as an elections commissioner on the San Francisco Elections Commission for about 12 years plus. It's really supposed to be 2 5-year terms, I think it is. But I served out the remainder of somebody else's term and then had 2 full terms of myself where I was appointed by 3 different mayors. Because every time we got a new mayor, I tried to get out of the job and they wouldn't let me. It's a lot of work. Also, it's kind of a problem because when you're working on these kinds of jobs with Elections Commission, it's not the place to be an activist. If I have the elections in my hands, I should not be unfairly for one side or another. I may have my own personal preferences, but I have to treat everyone as fairly as possible and try to create a fair and open election process. And so to that end, because I've had the experience, because I saw this in play a couple of different times, I was asked to serve, and I'm glad to serve because I just believe when you live in a city, you ought to participate in the health and welfare of that city. And it should not always be about you. And so I'm asking and making a special plea to the African American community. I'm going to be getting to Brother John and the both sides of the conversation, all of the information on when we meet, how to join the conversation, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm making a special plea. I'm really begging, and I don't believe in that too much hardly, that the African American community will get involved in this process, that people need to see you there or you get ignored. It ain't necessarily that everybody's out to get you, but if you ain't tooting your own horn, I don't know how we expect somebody else to toot it for us. So to that end, we need to get people involved in the process. People need to get with their friends and look look at what would be the best solutions for your community, and then recommend them to this body that I'm serving on. And I will do everything I can for all the communities in San Francisco that express to me their desires, and to do everything we can to stop unnecessary and ugly and impolite conflict between communities, but to foster cooperation. And the only way you can get good cooperation amongst communities, that every community feels like they've been considered and their needs have been considered. So it's a very lengthy process, a very important process where the census issues will come into play, and where we will look at how we can, for example, just to use the Black community, how can we make sure the African American communities' voices are heard? How can we make sure their needs are met, especially when you don't have citywide supervisors, but you have district supervisors who can assume that your problems are not theirs because they're not in your district. But we've got to remember that they are citywide supervisors elected from a district, elected to represent a district, but they are city supervisors. Therefore, that's why they get to vote on the entire budget for the city. If they was only concerned about their district, then they'd only get to vote for 1/11 of the budget. So since they vote on the whole budget, since they vote on all the laws that govern all of us, then they make all the laws that govern us in our city, then you have to see to it that they are concerned with all the districts of the city, though their representation may be specific to a district. That I'm going to pause right there. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. I
got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions, Reverend Townsend. We're gonna get to that. I want to get to this report. I want to show them to talk about this report. Then we'll come back to you. Community, get ready because we have some questions about this.
However you do it is fine with me, but go ahead.
All right. Just hang in there, Reverend Townsend. We're gonna get to you. Let's get this report up. Production, can y'all get the slides up? And let's have Ms. Cheryl go through this report so that everybody out there understand there was a independent report that was done. I think it's 44 pages. We will get the professor to come back on to go through this report and break it down because he is the one who wrote the report. But today we're going to cover the summary of the report and talk about some of the impact of the report and what the issues the community and the workers need for us to advocate to really push this change. So it's a real call to action to get community involved. So let me go ahead and pull up the report, and Cheryl, you can walk us through the report.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Let me stretch it. John, I have a favor to ask because my eyes are been giving me some problems. Is there any way that we can ask Kim? Kim, can you read the summary and then we can talk? Because I'm not able to stretch it here.
Let me pull mine up. Hold on one second. Yes, I can do that. Okay. Sure, no worries. The GOAT report. So I'm going to read the top 8 recommendations. 1, that the city and the unions bargain to remove the provision in the city's memorandum of understanding that forces employees to choose between filing an EEO complaint with DHR and filing a grievance with their union regarding discrimination. Number 2, that the city negotiate with unions contract provisions which expressly empower arbitrators hearing grievances concerning discrimination to award compensatory damages, such as damages of emotional distress, pain and suffering, and the like, and the damages such as emotional distress, pain and suffering, and the like, in appropriate cases, as provided for by the federal and state non-discrimination law. Number 3, that the city allow employees to appeal EEO investigation findings of the more consequential cases to independent and diverse hearing officers who are expert in employment discrimination law and supportive of fair employment principles, who write opinions. If necessary, a feature which is lacking in the Civil Service Commission process. Number 4, that the city overhaul its investigation processes, including by investing in modern case management software, creating an online complaint portal that will give employees greater transparency in the complaint process. Centralizing, can we move that up, please? The screen. Hello. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so where was I at? Centralizing DHR's authority over EEO investigations, updating EEO investigation manuals and policies, mandating the completion of an EEO investigations in 120 days or less, and hiring additional EEO investigation staff to meet those deadlines. That the city embrace and promote third-party mediation, as well as the pilot peer mediation program, as an alternative and additional forum for employees to resolve grievances, particularly those that may not rise to the level of an EEO violation. That the city invigorate its efforts to create apprenticeship programs and other upskilling programs that will enable workers to join skilled trades and other sought out jobs. That the city reform its hiring and promotion procedures to reduce hiring manager discretion and ensure the independence of interview panels. And lastly, that the city track the frequency with which managers and supervisors discipline their workers and intervene with training for managers who are responsible for disproportionate discipline or corrective actions where warranted. Okay, those are the 8.
Right, that's great information. So it's a lot of heavy stuff that we're talking about community. When we're talking about the work life and we're talking about the work experience, every worker has the right to come to work, to have a safe environment, free of discrimination, harassment, retaliation, systemically, not just in the city and county of San Francisco. Employers in large across this country haven't did their part when it comes to taking these claims serious, doing the proper investigation, doing the protective work, and it's an open conversation that needs to happen, right? How do we here, not only in San Francisco, but as Black workers, come together, organize, and make sure that when these type of findings and reports happen, that we are moving in a place of unity, and making sure that the results that we're expecting comes about this. And I believe this is what this call to action for community and workers tonight is to come together, review the report, as there is a commission meeting coming up on, I believe it's the 23rd. We need
It's
to get
the
community
20th.
the 20th. Is this going to be at City Hall? Is it going to be on Zoom?
I believe it's on Zoom. Everything's been on Zoom.
All
Or
right.
some- yeah.
Yeah, we'll try to get that information out to the community. So after reading reports, you all scan through it. We have these 8 highlighted points of the summary that stood out in the report. As city workers or as folks who have been involved with this process, watched it through, what are some of the things that you all would like to see as our supervisors and elected officials will be a part of that process of making a change? What are some of the things that you all are asking and demanding that get pushed through in this report that really impacts community?
So, hi, John. This is Cheryl. And one of the things that we collectively are asking for is transparency and accountability in all the city's policies and procedures that are on record. Because currently, disciplines, firings, promotional opportunities, we're at the top of the firings and the bottom of the promotional opportunities. Black workers have a longer work life than any other ethnicity. And I just want to say that Black women are the backbone of SEIU 10-1, which is the service door to the city. And, many Black women are single parents, and we are the sole providers sometimes in our households. And when we are under all of this great deal of pressure of being worried about being fired, worried about because we weren't even late. We're being held to a higher standard, or they just want to remove us just because of the color of our skin. Or if we are overlooked for a promotion, regardless if we have advanced degrees. This kind of behavior has to stop. And when many of us have gone to the EEO department to complain about these systemic problems, it fell on deaf ears. Currently, I believe there's a 4 to 5 year backlog on complaints. So if you file a complaint today, you may not be heard for 4 or 5 years. Well, what does that look like? The trauma, the pain. I mean, nobody knows how that is. And we are really tearing down our community is being torn down. Black workers are suffering all over, whether it's public work or private work, but we got to start somewhere to stop this systemic problem. And so one of our demands is to ask for an electronic personnel file that is universal throughout the city and county, where all our performance appraisals are stored, where our advanced degrees are stored, or so that when merit goes to look for promotional opportunities, they can see it. If we are disciplined, that it's stored there so that they can do an audit to make sure that if we are disciplined, that it matches the offense matches the punishment. And so that's one of the things that we want to see is a electronic employee record that is universal throughout the city, that's transparent, and that we can hold these managers and directors accountable for when they fall short of what the policies and procedures are on file. Thank you.
All right, very, very important information. Ms. Kim, is there any information that you want to put out there? I know there was supposed to be some more panelists tonight to get more of the feedback, but we hear you. We're asking and advocating for true equity for the city and county of San Francisco when it comes to personnel handling, updated, modernized data collection software to handle and collect data so that we can have true equity and a way to track this information to make sure that it's transparent equity for city workers, especially our Black and brown city workers. There seems to be a large gap when we talk about positions and movement. So that's one of the things that is being asked as we hear from there. Very important stuff there. Ms. Kim, did you want to go ahead and add to that? You got to unmute yourself, Kim. Sorry, you got to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Yes, not only are we suffering, we have proof, we have statistic data that came out that showed that Blacks were suffering more disciplinary actions in the workplace, especially at SFMTA, DPH, police department, all over, fire department, and that we were being fired the most. So these are some things that need to change as we go forward. But not only that, Dr. Gould had a really great suggestion, which is to have a peer mediation type group. And I've been working on something like this for an entire year, but I'm waiting for management or executive.
Your mic.
I'm sorry. We have some really great consultants out of Oakland that want to come in and help us with this process. And I think that would eliminate some of the EEO issues that we have had. As you know, it was in the news where there was some type of issue with DHR. So in order to prevent that, we can handle that in a restorative justice model. So that's what I think we should be doing in every department. Now, there is one going on now that they just started within DHR. So we will see how that's going to work for our city workers. But these discrepancies have to stop. I'm seeing it all the time. We have the non-Black employees who don't get disciplined. We have the Black employees that are getting more discipline. And it needs to be equal. And I know Sister Yolanda isn't here, but she mentioned that there's a concept that they use in the police department, which is a grid. And that would be very helpful so that we can keep everybody equitable across the board. And that needs to happen. And this would stop a lot of the racism that we're experiencing. So my hand is out to Dr. Gould. He did a wonderful job, and I'm looking forward to them implementing so we will have more positive change within the city and county of San Francisco.
So when you talk about transparency and accountability, this independent oversight committee, is that what you're advocating, that the independent third-party oversight committee is what's needed for San Francisco, city and county of San Francisco, to have fair, transparent, and to also hold the departments accountable? I just want to make sure that I'm hearing exactly what you're asking. Is that what you as city workers are asking for?
Yes, it is. Most definitely. Because the way the system is now, there's a lot of under the table things going on where people have a buy-in with management and things don't get done as a political arena a lot of times. So this would give us more transparency to have a third party that has nothing to do with the city and have them guide the process. So that's what we're asking for.
Definitely. Very, very important stuff. Ms. Cheryl, did anybody have anything else that you all wanted to get out? I know there was mentioned about reporting and having quarterly EEO reportings to have synopsis, including race, and what type of data and information are you guys trying to get so that we can show that accountability is happening or that transparency happening? What are you guys looking when you ask for this yearly or quarterly reporting?
what this Brenda, I think what we're asking for is things like who is hired, and we need that done by classification, because we know that most blacks get hired into the lower paid classifications and not the higher paid classifications. We have discrepancies where people get hired, and if you're black, you come in on the first step, which is the initial step. But if you're white, they start you on the top step. So there's all these little things that are not covered, and civil service needs to be reformed. There are many institutional racist policies. They weren't put in this year, last year, but they're still in there, and we can't protect ourselves as long as some of those rules are in place, and they need to be changed. And I know Shaman Walton, I've been hearing that he wants to put a ballot initiative, because the only way to change civil service would be through a ballot initiative and voted on by the voters to make it real city law. Because we have tons of policies, but if the departments don't implement the policies, if they overlook it, if they ignore it, there is really no recourse for the employees. They say EEO, but EEO, civil service, DHR are all in bed together. So when you talk to one, you're talking to all of them. So until they break that up, right, and have EEO be a real EEO and do its job of protecting the workers, which what should be its job, not necessarily protecting the employer, because from an employee perspective, what we see is all the effort goes to protect the employer and none of it goes to protect the worker. And so that's why they gave us some data, our union, and it showed, and it was ridiculous. It's like they had hundreds of cases and they did not find one for the employee, not one for the employee. They were all found to be the city. They were all told there's nothing they can do. They all told if you get bullied by your boss or something, unless they hit you or unless they call you the N-word, then it's nothing. But there's all these little things, daily things, and it wears on employees. And it turns good black employees into bad black employees because they don't care anymore, because they know their job don't care about them. And so the culture within employment in San Francisco is a huge issue, and it has to change. That's what needs to change. If we can't change this culture that we have, then they can put all the laws on the books, they can do whatever they want, but it's not going to change it. And they have to have accountability and fairness. Just as there's progressive discipline for employees, they need to have it for these managers, because a lot of them do things over and over and over. They don't get fired. They just get moved around from one department. Like our head of HR, she came from HSA. She was a problem over there. Now she's our problem, DPH. So that's what needs to stop. If they have ineffective managers that do not know how to manage people in a fair way and a non-discriminatory way, then they need to be gone. And that's what we don't see. We don't see them gone. They just move them around from place to place to place. And so instead of one place having to deal with this person causing all this harm to black workers, all over the city, you see these same managers causing problems all over the city for black workers. And
Wow.
so there has to be real accountability when they behave that way.
So I appreciate all that information. I think that's very, very powerful. But again, this is both sides of the conversation. And that's why we're here tonight, to have both sides of the conversation. Our job is also to do assessment, check out things and find out what is going on. And sometimes these conversations are important because when we reach out and ask these questions, and this is why I wanted to have you guys here to ask, when you talk to some of the department heads and some of the organizational leaders, trying to find out that supportive information. And I guess that's why it's so important to get the digital information because a lot of times from the perspective of the city is there's workers who violate the policies or they don't show up. And I just wanted to hear from you all, like, if you had to put that in a percentage, how much do you all think as a percentage, right? Because we can't just sit here and say that all of our employees are, following all of the procedures and policies that are in place. But we look at it in percentages, because I hear from different people that, hey, these people are not showing up on time. They're calling in sick. They're abusing this. They're doing this. But when we look at the overall scheme of things, what is that percentage in you all model? I mean, of course, we don't have the data to say, hey, this is what it is. But when we get that pushback, because this is both sides of the conversation from a city perspective, there's a lot of failure within the workers. When it comes to these advancements, skill sets, training, different things of that nature, where are you all seeing it on that realm? Is that a no, everybody's great, or is it a percentage?
No, absolutely. Everyone is not great. There are problems with some black employees. I'm just going to be honest, because I'm a supervisor. Cheryl's a supervisor. She knows. But we are saying that you have Asian employees, you have white employees doing equal or even more egregious things, and they don't get disciplined at all. They never get disciplined. And I would say somebody like me, I've had almost outstanding evaluations every year, as long as I've been there. And I've been there 42 years. But even me, I have to face all these things, and it's a constant fight. It's constant. Every day, at least one incident happens where I feel like I'm being treated a little bit differently because of my race. And that's what's happening to these employees every day. So that's what I meant when I said you have good employees who may not, because everybody handles these kind of stresses different. Some employees, they become introverts, some just leave, and some get angry, right? And when you're angry, your behavior changes. And you don't want to come to work because you don't want to face that anymore. And so when they look at attendance, some of that attendance of black workers is based on the fact, like, I have to go into this really hostile workplace. And some days I just don't want to face that. Some days you don't feel like facing that, and you might stay home. So I don't buy into that black employees are worse than other employees. That
I wasn't saying. Hold on.
No, I know you didn't say that, but I'm
saying black employees are worse. I'm just saying from the assessment, because again,
I know. But what I'm saying is that's what they're saying about us, all of us. No matter how good you are, they're still saying it. That's what we're saying.
So what I want to say is we have to always be twice as good. Now, are there some people who fall short because of circumstances? Yes. But is it reflected on the paperwork? No. Some people are covered for and others are not. And what I mean, you have people who commute from Antioch. Let's just use that. They're 5 minutes late to work. Black worker. The supervisor marks it down. The same white or Asian worker who they like, who has the halo effect, they don't write that down. So that's the kind of things we're talking about. But I just want to say something. The pandemic has been going on now, over 15 months? I have not called in sick one time. And everybody who knows me, all my employees everywhere, anybody in the department knows I don't call in sick. But I'm held to a higher standard than everybody else. And that's what Brenda is saying. Even through this pandemic, we had to provide verification because I was going for a permanent position, verification of our attendance. And they took that information and I don't know what they did with it, but some people had terrible attendance, but yet they were still promoted. All I'm telling you is, most oftentimes when you get down to it and you do the investigation, which is not, there's no synopsis behind those numbers, you can't see what's really going on. But I'm telling you, All this trauma is causing health disparities for Black workers. They have more heart attacks, more strokes, and we are leaving the job stressed out. And so I just so to get a report and look at it that way, we need to drill down and find out what is really going on. But I can tell you there is so much white privilege going on. There are people who are supervising me, who are managers who don't have degrees. How is that? And then when you have more knowledge than them, they get upset and they retaliate against you, write you up for doing a good job. And they never recognize you for doing a good job. So we're under a lot of pressure. And again, the reason I'm here tonight is because sooner or later, I'm going to be passing the torch. And I want the city and county to be a place where it's equitable and there's fairness in the workplace for all. Because when you improve the lives of one group, you improve the lives of all San Franciscans in San Francisco. And we need to close some of these disparities and stop the systemic racism. It is 2021. I cannot even begin to tell you my fight and what I have gone through, because that's not what I'm here for tonight. But we need to see change, and we need to see it now, and we need to see transparency and accountability. And if these directors and managers cannot follow the rules and they break the rules, they need to have penalty, some financial penalty, or they need to be terminated. We all need to have uniform disciplinary guidelines that we're all held to the same standards. Black workers should not be held to a higher standard and be paid less money. Thank you.
So I'm there with you. Just want you to know that I'm there. I understand. I know what goes on. And I'm just glad that you cleared that out about being transparent. And I agree with you. We have to make it where, we're doing it consistently across the board. And we know just through the information that there's a wide gap of how people are disciplined, treated, and moved around in all of these employment realms. Again, so the fight is getting that data, getting the system that can clearly retrieve the information from an HR standpoint so that we can put the reports to start really showing the inequities and how it's impacting the workers. I agree with you. An unhappy workplace is hard to work. But again, as veterans and shop stewards and people that are committed to doing this, and I hear you passing the torch, we have to make sure that we also enrich our young people and new employees with the information and policies, how to navigate the systems, and make sure that they are getting the right information coming on board. So I think that's very, very important. But with that being said, we're going to move on. We're going to go ahead and jump into, we'll keep everybody up there, but we'll jump into Reverend Townsend, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this redistricting and what's going on to impact us with this redistricting, because this is a big issue, another fight that we got to do it. And, Reverend Townsend got kicked off. Well, as you all can see, the need for infrastructure and Wi-Fi in our city is very, very important, as the fiber optics has been a problem. So let's see if we can get Reverend Townsend back on in a second. There you go. We'll get you up there. We'll get you up there, Reverend Townsend. All right, you there, Reverend Townsend? If you get kicked off again, just come in.
Yeah, I'm back. I got a terrible connection today. I've been getting knocked off of Zoom and various kinds of platforms all day in the same house I always do it in. But let's go as far as we can. And if I get knocked off, I'll get right back on.
So I want to come back to a couple of things, and I believe Cheryl said it. We all stated it. I got to ask you this, Reverend Townsend, because this is very important. And I heard you say earlier in your statement that there was times you didn't want to be a part of the commission and you was forced into doing it. And if you had the choice, you wouldn't. But you when it was an opportunity, you took it. And you said something earlier about education and getting this information to community. So my question is, how do we get our elders of the community to pass the torch to our young people and equip them with the information so that they can take those seats and move us forward? That's question one.
Well, okay. I'll tell you that for me, now I can only speak for myself. For me, you just got to ask. If you want information I got, I believe it would be a sin for me to die with a full head that I haven't passed on to anyone else. Now, I believe I would be held accountable for that. That's on the one hand. Um, on the other hand, folk, when I was considered young, and we had a group of us that did a lot of things in this city at a young age, we didn't wait for the torch to be passed. We found some rag.
Oh, we lost Reverend Townsend. We'll get him back. I think this is going to be a very important part before we close out tonight, because some of the struggles that we're facing in our community, and here goes Reverend Townsend here. We'll let him finish connecting. Go ahead, Reverend Townsend.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I just want to say that as the Black population is in San Francisco, it really impacts. I'm sure that, but then it ultimately impacts the funding sources. And as you know, we have a high need in all the mental health, the lack of jobs, the lack of education, the lack of access to healthcare. And so we have a greater need. But because they say we're only 5% of the census tract here in San Francisco, they say, oh, well, you can't prove the need. And so our funding sources are cut in our nonprofits. And this is where we have to really fight and really educate our young people on how all these things are connected. And so that even when we pass the torch, we're still out there in the community working to reinforce this education. And so this is why I like to work with the young people, because they're our future and they can do it. And they have to be there to learn the lessons that we're passing along. And so all these things, Black workers, redistricting, all these things, the need to vote, they're all connected to our community here in San Francisco, our Black community, and keeping it healthy.
So I agree with you, Cheryl. I agree with you. But the problem is, that's why I want to hear from Reverend Townsend. Okay, we're losing steam with the 5% of people that we have in San Francisco. Okay, when we're talking about these issues that you all are dealing with, okay, right now, the stuff that you all are going through, where is our leadership at? Okay, and this is a question that I have to pose to Reverend Townsend. Where is the NAACP? Okay, because they have been in the scenes and they're slowly fading away. And this is issues that we should be going to our NAACP to deal with, right? Legally, supportive wise, it's not happening. And this is why I have to ask this question about leadership and passing the torch. Because we can't sit back and say, hey, these organizations and these leaders represent us, but they're not moving us forward. We can impact the young people and give them the information, but if we don't get the leadership to pass the torch and step back and let them lead, we're not moving the community forward. That's all I'm saying. And we have to do it. We at a critical point, 5% of people in San Francisco. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is 5%. The leadership that we have from community organizations, community leaders in our community, we're not doing such a great job. And I'm just being honest. This is not to point nobody out. We got to start organizing and get better. The organization of how we come together. See, one of the powers that we had in the past was we could move people. Okay. We have so many personal issues, so much interfighting, so much, competing and not collaborating. Right. It's hurting our movement. right? And it's so easy to divide people who are not organizing and leading in the way of a way that's going to make impact and change. And just standing there and not saying anything is putting us farther back in a hole. So when do we have the real conversation? That's what I wanted to ask on the top, Reverend Townsend, is how do we get that real leadership? Because it's real stale right now. I mean, it used to be a time where when we hear these issues that y'all going through, we pick up the phone and call some of our leaders and we showing up. We can't even move 100 people right now. We can't even put a call out to get 1,000 city workers to take off and show our solidarity. So again, I mean, we got to have a real conversation. This is both sides of the conversation. We're not going to just play around. We're going to talk about us too, right? Because we can sit here all day and point about everybody else and how they're doing this, and it's very well true. But as leaders of the community, as workers of the city, as community organizations, how do we work together in solidarity and make sure that our words and our actions is together where we impact the change? And I'm just being honest. So, Reverend Townsend, go ahead, Reverend Townsend.
Yeah, let me say real quick and hope I don't get knocked off before I finish. Let me tell you something. When it comes to passing the torch, first of all, leadership is won and it's earned. It's not bestowed. No one can pass you the leadership. You got to seize it. As I told some young people not long ago, let me know what I'm doing that's standing in your way of taking the reins of leadership. Because I'll move over. But what if you're going to get there, your work makes you a leader, because the true leaders of any organization or any group or people are the people who put the work in. No one can hand it to you and then everybody gonna listen to you. People are gonna listen because they see your production. So that's really important. I'm 78 years old. I don't even have the energy to do what people think I do. I don't. And even when I said serving on these committees, I know I have the experience. I know I have the expertise, and I'm willing to do it because I know it needs to be done. If there's someone else to do it and can do it, they can have it. Because I got 2 little granddaughters that I love playing with and spending time with. So
Reverend Townsend, hold on, Reverend Townsend, hold on. I want to say, I got to get this in here before I forget, Reverend Townsend, because this is very important. And I agree with you. See, when I'm talking about transition of power, passing the torch, right? I don't want the elders of the community to feel that we're trying to push them out of spot, right? But what we're asking is that our elders of the community enrich and empower our young people. And I know he got kicked off again. I would give him a second to come back on. So Reverend Townsend, so what I was trying to say, because I want you to hear this, and this is respectfully, I want everybody to know this is no shot at you or nothing like that, because I'm having a real conversation about what's going on in our community, right?
Yeah, I could take shots. Go ahead.
I love you, Reverend Townsend, but listen, what I'm saying is this. You said something earlier that you said, why would I want to go to the graveyard with all this information, right?
Exactly.
That's what you said. What I'm telling you is, you said, I need community or somebody to tell you. I'm going to tell you what I see. I see the leaders of our community headed down that pathway. Because I want to know, what are we putting in place? It's one thing to say.
Hold on. Let me tell you this. This is real important. You got to hear this. I have been invited to speak in Chinatown at the Chinatown Community Development Center, their entire staff. And I was really pleased to see that they had about 10 or 15 Black workers on staff, about 70 young people, about the history of urban renewal and what led and what began the gentrification of Black folk out of San Francisco. I have been invited on a Zoom to speak to about the same number of Latino employees from MADA, Mission Economic Development Association. I have been invited to speak to TNDC of their entire staff of young people about the same thing. I am invited to USF every school year to speak to those people about the same thing. You know what? I have never been invited to and by a group of young black folk to talk about the history of what happened in the Fillmore. And because of that, I'm in the Safeway parking lot. I hear two young brothers talking, and one of them says, yeah, man, black folk used to own a lot of stuff out here in Fillmore, but they just gave it all away because they don't have the information. I got it. Let me know how to get it to you. Let me know you want it. I'm giving it to all these other people, and the people that desperately need to know have not asked for it.
So I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna ask for it because I want to know. But here's the thing: my thing is this, Reverend Townsend. This is the problem in the black community, and I'm gonna say it. And they know how I feel about this. We have too much history, and not enough future. Okay, we are in times right now where we got to get active with today, because what I'm hearing from our leaders is about the historic part. What's happening. And we don't talk about right now and the things that's going to impact us 20 years from now. We're talking about a digital divide. We're talking about cryptocurrency. We're talking about technology. We're talking about automation. We can't talk about what happened. We know what happened is relevant. It's important to know. We have to have that historic value. But I'm worried about the young people moving forward, right? And I get it that you're being invited to these platforms, and that's great, right? But what about the young people? The young people's voice is not being heard right now. We got a whole generation of young people that feel they can't even speak their truth, right? And I gotta agree with them, Reverend Townsend, and even me as a younger older person, right? I'm tired of hearing from us. I want our young people to speak. You get what I'm saying? I want to hear them because again, we lived our part, right? But we talking about the issues that impact us right now, right? We need to know, how do we push this next generation, like Cheryl and them talking about, of workers forward to equip themselves to be able to have these conversations so that they don't get kicked out, so that they don't be impacted in ways that's going to set the next generation back. Those are the way we got to move, because the movement right now is not moving. It's still. You get what I'm saying? Our leadership right now is headed down a way that we're going, like you said, I'm looking at our leaders of the community, and it's like we're going to the grave with this information. And it's a lot of ego. It's a lot of ego. It's a lot of ego. And Reverend Townsend, it's a lot of ego. And we can have another conversation offline of it, but it's a lot of ego. And
No, it's not. In the sense of ego, I don't think that's as prevalent as people want to make it out to be, because that's an easy justification. Let me explain how one thing to you. I'm a member of the NAACP. I'm the vice president. All right. And folks will say all the time, we need younger leadership. That is absolutely true. We need younger leadership. But when we get younger leadership, it'll be somebody who's in the NAACP already, has learned the rules and how the NAACP operates and rises to leadership. It's not going to be because people in the NAACP go outside the NAACP and bring somebody in and make them to be the president. We have a youth group that is our fervent desire that as the years go on, and way after I'm gone, because I ain't got much more time to be in it, that these people will rise up to that level. Because if they don't, what happens? The organization will die. If I'm invited to a church to preach, and I see nobody but people my age and older, my first thought is, this church is dying. If there's no young folk there working, learning, and moving towards leadership, it's dying. And that's any group. That's any group of people. That's any organization, whatever it is. Absolutely. The information is here for the taking. You can't force people to take it. But I hope people want it. And in my own case, I pray people will use me to get it, because it's valuable if you're trying to move forward. It's valuable to have a strong understanding of the past. We say to all the time, history repeats itself. That's wrong. History doesn't repeat itself. History is benign. It doesn't do anything except wait to be made. The problem is not history repeats itself. People keep on repeating history because they don't have a knowledge of it.
But that happens because but that's mentorship. That's poor leadership
Exactly.
if it's happening. So
Exactly.
here's my thing though, Reverend.
Hold on. And I'm telling you, people are willing to mentor and they got no takers.
So here's what my issue is, right? Because again, I understand there's a process, but if we're not open to change, how do we move our community forward?
I
Because
agree.
the models are not working. The models are not working, Reverend. And I have to be honest, the models is not working. The things that are put in place in the structures to help move our people forward is not working. We don't have that safety net where we feel that security is there. Because these queens that's on here talking about what they're going through, they should be able to have that support, but outside of the independent report reviewer from our community leaders, and it's not happening. So that tells me and that's not the point the finger, but how do we fix it?
But I don't see that.
I see it. I'm telling you, I see it. I'm speaking for me. I see it.
What I do see, and what I believe that the real danger is that, you see, we have in this country a Western philosophy. In the Eastern philosophy, it says, in the Western philosophy, it says when the new comes, the old is no longer of value and is thrown away. And we go into, as we go into the future. In the Eastern philosophy, Africa, Asia, the Eastern nation, it's that when the new comes, the new moves forward with the old because they're stronger together. When the Hebrews got to the promised land, they wouldn't have got there without Joshua, the young man's strength to lead the army, but he couldn't have got there without Moses' wisdom. So their success had to come together. And that's the problem in this city and other cities. We're not working together. It's always got to be one or the other. And I
agree with you. I agree with you 100% right there. But I also have to disagree respectfully when you talk about that model, because I think this is the part that's holding our leadership from transferring the power and passing the baton. Because when you say that the young people come in, they feel like the old is being thrown out, right? That's a fear thing. And that's a mentality that some of our elders hold on to, and that's not what it's about. Come on, Reverend Townsend, we're gonna keep it real now.
No, you can't throw me aside if we're working together. You can't do it. It's not done. We're not working together. And so, and people will see me in a position. I have a couple. I used to have more. I'm older now. There are other people, younger people, doing some of the things that I used to do, praise the Lord. Now, the position that I have, they're not closed off to work with me. They're not closed off. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But you can come in and we can work together. Because at my age, everybody that I sit in a meeting with, like today, I've been in 4 different Zoom meetings and 1 other in-person meeting. Everybody in the room is younger than I am, that I'm working with. They're all in leadership. You understand? They're all in leadership. They're working with me in the various areas I'm in. I'm working in some areas right now, and the people who are working with me will tell you that I say all the time, I'm doing stuff I shouldn't have to do. I will give you a real clear example. When the mayor, when she was supervisor, and she and Malia Cohen did the study and found out what a small percentage of Black folks was getting housing, affordable housing, and they came up with the neighborhood initiative. I studied it and saw that all the groups that were getting housing had people look like them building affordable housing. Everybody but us. I started a housing development corporation because we had none that were black led. Should I not have done that and just sat and waited? I've been working around housing for 50 years. There have been 50 years when somebody younger than me could have started a housing development corporation with black led. The only person that ever started one was a woman who was older than me, who's dead now, Geraldine Johnson. Started SFHDC, and now it's no longer black led.
So Reverend Townsend, to talk about the housing, there's a lot of issues there. Those models,
yes,
that we fought for, that you fought for, the co-ops,
yes,
they did a disservice to our community.
How did they?
Because co-ops pushed the black people out of San Francisco because we didn't have true ownership.
No.
Would you agree? Would you agree with me with that? Would you agree with me with that? Because if we push for ownership, we would still be here.
We got to get the terminology right. Co-ops, you do own. You own. It's like a condo. What you're talking about is the 236 rental housing, like Friendship Village, not King Garvey, because that's co-op, but Friendship Village, Prince Hall, all of those places. You're right. They're rentals. They are rentals, and here's what they do. They make them, that wasn't how they were supposed to turn out. They made them so that if you're my son and you and I live together, the lease is in my name, but I've been retired for how long? You pay the rent. When I die, you can't inherit my unit. You got to get out, and you're 100% right.
But you said it right though. The intention wasn't to be there to do that, but it happened because we didn't have true ownership. So we still have to say true ownership didn't work. And those co-ops, the percentage of ownership is very small. The tax break is nothing for the residents. When it comes to voting power in the city, because they don't pay the taxes, we lose that power in the vote, right? Right? When it comes to that stuff. So again, great thing that you did, but it also failed our city. It also pushed us out in a way.
Now, let me tell you something else. If that housing had not been built, even right today, and we're losing population, I know that. You look at Laurel Gardens, King Garvey, Lauren Miller Homes, Friendship Village, Frederick Douglass Haynes, Thomas Paine. You take them out of the Fillmore, how many black folk would be left here right now? So in terms of, now, let me give you a little more history and background. The reason those were built is because when redevelopment came, they were not planned, they didn't plan to build that housing. When they came, it was you get $50 per family and get by, goodbye, get out, no certificate program, no right to come back, nothing. Black folk stood in front of bulldozers and went to court and forced them to build the replacement housing. But understand what they did. They took for sale housing, housing that we owned, and built rental housing. They took our wealth and gave us money for it. It ain't the same thing. And we're suffering as a community today. The mistake was made by a whole lot of people that thought Fillmore was a poor community. No, we had poor people in it more than our share, but we also had well-to-do people, business owners, people that employed black people, and all that was lost. So I agree with you.
Here's one of the things. This is one of the.
We had people of other colors are taking the housing because when one of us moves, they don't move one of us in, even though we got people been on the waiting list since those places was built. That's not a factor of black folks not working together. That's a factor of corruption within these housing complexes and within the management. Corruption.
So Reverend Townsend, I don't want to go there because we have another conversation about this.
Let's do it anytime.
I'm just saying, because Reverend Townsend, I don't want to go there tonight. I'm not gonna go there because I love you. I give you the respect for standing up and saying it. But again, I respect you about the history. I'm about moving forward with solutions, and I'm glad that you're willing to work with the community. I still want to know, how do we remove, or how do we pass the torch to move the community forward? Because I'm gonna tell you what's happening right now. I'm gonna tell you. Let me just say this. There's a couple of things that people see, and I'm a very assessing person. I assess a lot of things. When you talk about people not working together and we talk about leadership, we have to be careful how we move because we impact the community.
Right.
So when we talk about how this division happens, how this segregation happens, it's all organized, right? We always talk about organization, and we always refer back into organization. So when you have fraternities, when you have sororities, they also play that part of division. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm very sharp on this stuff, and I know when we look at the leadership in San Francisco, it's two powerful organizations and fraternities that's politically driven in the city. And you know who those two fraternities are.
But I never pledged. I'm not a member. Oh, listen to me.
But our leadership is.
I'm not a member of a fraternity.
I know, but our leadership is, though. It don't have to be you, but our leadership is. When you talk about the leadership of the city, you're talking about the Omegas, you're talking about the Gamma Sapphire, you're talking about the president. You the vice president, but we talk about the president. So we know there's political stuff behind there that further divides us, right? How do we fix that?
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't see it as a problem. I don't see it as a problem.
It's a problem. I'm gonna tell you it's a problem, Reverend Townsend. I'm gonna tell you why it's a problem.
I still have the question that I asked early, and I still want to answer. What am I doing? What am I doing that's standing in the way of any young person who wants to be a leader in this city? What am I doing? What act am I committing? Except I might hold a title, which I don't hold very many. If you study me, I don't hold very many.
So I'm not gonna sit here and point at what you're doing wrong, right? There's a lot of silence in our community. And this is when we talk about organization and power. When the masses of people understand that there is a weakness and there's a failure of leadership, but because of the statute, our community, especially our faith-based community, we don't speak up.
I don't know that to be true.
I think that's very true. We'll have another conversation about it, because I want Reverend Brown on here when we had this conversation.
Yeah, but absolutely. But let me just say this. I think the idea of not speaking at all is the biggest problem we have. I tell young people, and we'll let it go if you want to with this, and we can regroup. I tell young brothers all the time. I said, look here, man. Things have changed for me. I'm not who I used to be. When I go in a meeting now, and there's a bunch of white folks in the meeting, and I look at what they do on us, and I get mad, don't nobody react except they look at me and say, Rail, did you take your medication? But when you can get young brothers to go into a meeting and they get mad, things happen. I don't want to go in the meetings by myself. I want some young Goliaths with me.
So Reverend Townsend, are you open to change? Are you willing to be innovative? Are you willing to think outside of the box from the normal construct? That's all I want to know.
If you know me and you know my history, you know the answer to that question. That question.
I know your history. I need to know, because that's what the community needs.
Absolutely.
We need to know that our leaders are willing to step back to new ideals, new change, so that we can organize and move our community forward.
The answer is yes. But if you look at my history, you should know the answer is yes before you ask me. That's just that's where I am. And we'll talk some more. Because I think it's an important conversation that needs to be had. and we can, and let me just say, well, I can speak for myself. We can go beyond worrying about hurting my feelings or anybody else's. It's trying to get to the truth of the matter that moves our community forward and makes us stronger. Because I'm an old-fashioned one, but I believe that Warrior slogan was right when they said stronger together or better together or something, whatever that was. I believe in that. And I believe it takes all of us working together. And like young folks say, even if you want to tell me to stay in my own lane, working together, we get more done than working at odds with one another. That's all.
I agree with you. We're going to set up a conversation.
Please, please.
I think it's very important. I don't want to hurt feelings, but I want the truth to be heard.
I'm open to it.
And I'm going to speak for me.
Yeah,
there's a need for change in leadership.
And I'm open.
So we'll have a conversation about it, but we need a change in leadership. The organization and the leadership of our community has become stale, and it's not moving us forward.
I just want to say that if you study the leadership,
I study. I know, Reverend Townsend. I know.
It's already
I know what the problem is.
It's already changed. It's not old people leading this community. It's not, and we'll talk about that when we regroup. All right.
Definitely. But before you go, and I really respect you and appreciate you for having that dialogue, because this is what it's about. But before we go,
I've enjoyed it. I think it's important, man. I'm glad you broke it. Ain't nothing off limits when we talk.
That's right. But the main point that you was here is for redistricting. Please get us that information so we can get it out to the community.
And please, even though I have been appointed, please show up and get involved anyway. And that's how you take the leadership of this redistricting effort. Because I'm just sitting up there to vote on it and to try to steer and lead conversation. The work has got to be done by and with the people. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate this.
I appreciate you too, and we're gonna have that conversation. Definitely give me the information. We will move our community forward, and we're gonna walk on the side of you as we do it.
All right. And since I keep getting cut off, I'm gonna cut off. But God bless y'all.
I love you guys. All right, community. As you all can see, this is Both Sides of the Conversation. We is always committed to what we about, having both sides of the conversation. We have some real pressing issues in our community that is real every day. As you all see, we have city workers, we have community leaders that are being impacted by some of the systemic things that are pushing our communities down. As a community, we have to unify. We have to walk in solidarity. We have to start moving, because it's 5% here in San Francisco. And if we don't get it together, it'll be less than that. It's going to take all of us, young, old, to work together. But there's a transitioning time that is happening in these conversations. And I'm glad that Reverend Townsend said he's open to it, because I want to bring them back on. Because it's no way that our city workers, it's no way that these powerful queens that are here that's grinding, doing the work, should not have representation from our leaders of our community and our organizations. And we're going to start from the top with the NAACP to our organizational leaders. We should not have to put up with this, okay? And we need leadership. And I respect Reverend Townsend tonight for being open, transparent on the spot to have the conversation. I think it needs to be in depth. I think there's a time for change. I'm going to speak up for the community. I've sat back so patiently and observed and obsessed what's going on with our Black San Francisco and our Black-led organizations and our communities for way too long. And the same things have been impacting our community over and over again. This is the year that we break the silence. We work together and we move forward. We are looking for leadership. And as we recruit and gain new leadership, we need community to stand behind those leaders. Only way we can move forward is we have to let our personal and political things go to the side and look at us as Black and support each other for the greater good. And it starts with the leadership that we have in place now. We have a mayor, a board president. We have Director Dr. Cheryl Davis at the Human Rights Commission. We have a number of other community leaders who are doing work, trying to move us forward. We have to get behind them and support. And we got to do our part. And this is not about, oh, this is that. It's about, as Black folks, we got to start working together. We got to put our personal issues to the side, and we got to start walking in motion together. When these sisters put out this call for action and they asking community to stand up as community, we got to put the phone calls in. We got to show up to these meetings and support each other, because again, the impact of what they're going through is going to impact others in our community if we don't work together, if we don't stand in solidarity, and if we're not open to change the things that we've been doing so long in pattern and comfort and program. We have to change, and it starts with being open. It starts to being able to walk into our fears and being open to new innovative ideals as we are shifting. One thing this pandemic has shown, things are shifting. We have to move our elders and we have to move our young people forward. Cryptocurrency. We have to start getting our people in the community ready for automation, because a lot of these jobs are going to be lost to automation and computers, and we got to start getting our young people into technology. We have to bring our elders of the community up to speed with technology. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of education and a lot of information that needs to happen. And as community, we're going to have to come together and deal with this daily. Again, great educational presentation tonight. I apologize that the presenter of the interview wasn't here tonight, but we'll get him back on and go through his report. As again, we're going to march together to make sure that the resolutions and the things that were found in the report is transparently implemented, so that procedures and policies for our city workers, especially our Black and brown workers, will impact them so that they can go to work and have that true experience of what it's like to feel, to be involved like every other worker in any other entity within the city. It's going to take work. It's going to take time, but we are here and we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to do the things we're going to do, whether it's calls of action as community show up. We're going to do our part. We have to be the change. Lead by example. These things have been going on for long times, and it is time for community to stand up and unite so that we can confront it. We can't just show up when things is good. We can't just show up when the cameras is there. We got to show up 365 days a year for solidarity to make sure that these issues are sustained and they don't come back. So with that being said, thank you all for joining tonight. We are going to start wrapping up tonight's show. I want to thank Kimberly. I want to thank Cheryl Thornton, Brenda, and all of our panelists tonight. Even though we got off to a rough start, we got through this. Great conversation. Thanks to Reverend Townsend. Again, community, there's redistricting happening. We need to get involved with the civic process. So we're definitely going to start asking those elected officials to come on and educate our community so that we can get involved with the process, so that when these sisters go to commissions and have these changes and resolutions that needed, our community knows how to vote and be a part of the process. With that being said, this Sunday, community, if you're ready for some great information and a great conversation, this Sunday, our Sunday conversation, we are having part 2 to our community violence conversation. We're going to have the Human Rights Director, Dr. Cheryl Davis, come on and talk about the resources, some of the programs that's being implemented, talk about some of the resources and some of the things that are being put in place behind the scenes to combat some of the violence that is taking place in our community, and a number of other issues that I'm sure she's going to give resources and information to the community. We'll have Felicia Jones from Wealth and Disparities. We'll have some other community folks come on as we're trying to figure out ways to really impact our young people and impact our community when it comes to this violence in our community. And then next Tuesday, we'll have another Hidden Gem segment where we will continue to highlight our Black and brown businesses as well as community leaders that are doing positive things to impact our community. I hope you all found tonight's educational presentation somewhat useful. I see the chats. I see communities involved. There is work. Let's stand behind these folks and make sure that the information and demands that they're asking are met, and we could do it all in unity and solidarity. So let's stick together. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. God bless, be safe, and be open to change as we push our communities forward. We'll see y'all all this Sunday. Have a blessed evening.